Hi, I'm Amy Foster. I'm the Real-Time Planning Manager at QVC.
So what actions did you take away last time and what was the outcome of them?
I think last time for us it was a real insight to understand what our key challenges were in terms of volatility. We're actually set up from a resource planning point of view really well. However, what we need to understand is what that volatility is and what we can actually do to take that away from our staffing profiles, and then our staffing profile will become a lot smoother with the changes that come in from setup hours and the call demand.
I'm Dave Taylor from Telefonica, which is O2. I think the biggest takeaway from workshop 1 was all around is actually understanding the demand, so the known knowns, the unknown knowns, and all of that, which actually quite surprised us because actually we probably actually know quite a bit of what the actual demand is, and there's very few unknown unknowns that were actually there, but probably is how do we actually plan that then into our demand.
Hi, I'm Matt Jones. I'm one of the scheduling planners at Gold Medal Travel in Preston. I think looking at each individual item and looking at the known and unknowns was the main points that he brought back, and also looking at the possible swing between our a maximum and minimum staffing. So looking at the knowns and unknowns, we have some sort of set crises, which is obviously unknown unknowns, but then trying to key into some known unknowns and the unknown knowns, and looking at them in a bit more detail. I mean, as a form of action coming from that, there's not a great deal we've done yet because Bob's still away, but he's handed over quite a bit to us. It's some things that we can work on with looking at, obviously the World Cup going on at the minute was a big one, and obviously what impact, obviously England going further, if at all, and what impact it's going to have. So we've looked at a few different things. We've actually gone back to the European Cup a few years ago, seeing how that's. So we've looked at a little bits, but we've not actually done a great deal about what sort of that input that's going to have. But we've sort of keyed in a few pointers to put into that grid, and obviously work to in the future.
So what flexibility options do you have in play at the moment?
The flexibility options that we have in play at the moment are we have the flex up and flex down contracts, we have on-call contracts, and we have home agents as well. But also when it gets to a real-time point of view, then we'll look at short notice, overtime and different things like that to try and get them on board, but also look at back office support as well, but also just making sure that they're all in service so we don't create that loop effect.
Yeah, it's one of the things is, as O2, we outsource the majority of our customer service, so it's very much working with our partner Capita now is to understand how much flexibility do they actually plan for and how much flexibility can they give us to actually be able to meet the demand that, you know, obviously will fluctuate as the year goes on, whether it's through marketing campaigns, etc.
Okay.
Well, I'm actually quite surprised looking at the toolkit we use, probably about 80% of them. There's a few that we don't use. We don't use the 0 hour contract. Bearing in mind that we normally schedule about a month in advance anyway, we don't really have, we have occasionally e-shots where we do probably a short shift, sort of short notice shifts instead of the 0 hour. We don't use, I think, as students as much as we could do. I don't think we don't do any flexibility, sort of the flexible hours.
Okay.
I've not heard the term annualised hours either, but we do obviously the full-time, the part-time, we use like an A-team as in a second job.
So I know, like I said, we're only halfway through the workshop today, but is there any particular takeaways that you get from today so far?
As I say, thinking about looking a bit more at the toolkit and some of the ideas we've got, and also then looking at, you know, why have we dropped a few things we've dropped, you know, maybe revisiting them and putting them into a bit more practice. I mean, the shift review, someone said, you know, you do maintenance on it, which is true. We don't actually do a sit down, let's look at how it's working. Or more of a case of a reactive, crikey, we need a 9 o'clock start that day. And we don't seem to have as much, so we move a shift really quickly. Whereas, do we actually need at 9 o'clock every day? Yes. Is it a port of a certain day? And actually breaking down a bit more detail what we're doing.
Definitely, we're going to continue to look at our volatility issues at the moment. What we have started to do is looking at those call spikes that are coming in, what percentage of customers are actually placing an order with us if they do abandon. So we need to understand what our service levels need to be and how we can support that from a staffing profile point of view.
I think the main takeaway for me is that being very much looking at it from a voice perspective, so how many calls do we have coming into the centres, but we actually also have quite a large web chat operation, so it's how many of these principles can we actually start looking at and working with the web chat to understand how that can actually be, you know, interface with the voice operation and also on its own.